what is the science behind neurofeedback?
What's the science behind neurofeedback? Well, neurofeedback is actually predates back to the 1880s. Its first discovery was with Hans Berger's discovery of brainwaves. It's actually an interesting story there. Hans Berger was going to school. He went to the cavalry. He was riding on a horse. He fell off the horse and he almost suffered a severe head injury, trauma. His life had changed. And at that very moment, his sister from halfway across the world felt something and had their dad send him a telegram. So when he got home, he sees this telegram from his sister and he's like, "Are you okay? I felt this." And that's what got him thinking, like, how is this possible where my close sister or somebody from the other end of the world senses I'm in danger? What is it that communicates those areas? And that's, Hans Berger is known to be attributed to the discovery of brainwaves. And that's where we came up with alpha, theta, beta, the various different brainwaves. He's the one that came up with all these. But true neurofeedback actually came about in the 1950s, 1960s. The forefathers, the creators, are Barry Sterman, PhD from UCLA, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was also Joe Camilla, Dr. Joe Camilla. Yeah, these two were the founding fathers of neurofeedback. And the way that happened is basically they were playing with EEGs and trying to describe how the various functions of those brain waves that Hans Berger discovered can be recorded and what their functions are. Funny story there, they actually, during that time, Ivan Pavlov, which we're all familiar with, Pavlov's dog, he had been working with dogs, so Dr. Sterman took the same approach as Pavlov with cats. And now he provided the cats with a certain stimulus and then recorded their EEGs, their electrical brain frequencies, and based on certain frequency patterns, he would stimulate or give them a conditioning in a sort to do certain behaviors, supporting behaviors. And this yielded to neurofeedback, but the ultimate purpose and use, I think, really happened when Dr. Sterman was approached by NASA. During that time, NASA was already spending millions of money sending rockets to the moon, and they had this issue with rocket fumes deeply creating problems with those around it, from hallucinating to severe headaches, etc. So they called in Dr. Sterman to see if there was any way that he could work with the people to try to alleviate this. So the first thing he did is brought in his cats, the ones that he'd previously worked on, and started testing the cats for the various illness or the various symptoms from this rocket fuel. 10 cats were impervious right off the bat. And he was shocked. He was like, he didn't understand why 10 of these cats were suddenly impervious to this, intoxicating fumes or this rocket fuel. And then he realized that it was the 10 cats that he had performed neurofeedback on. And somehow, during these process, these cats had actually gained a resilience in their brain. And I'm speaking in very simple terms and not technical terms so it can be easily understood. The resilience being that the various receptors in the brain had become impervious to that kind of effect or stimulus from the rocket fuel. So quickly seeing this, he started working with NASA and alleviating the problem through neurofeedback. Now, back then there's different types of neurofeedback, which we can get into later, but these gentlemen were the forefathers, 1950s, 1960s, that actually created the first neurofeedback mentality and brought it to life.
So according to all these information, how long has neurofeedback been around?
Like I said, it started first in 1960s. During the 1990s and 2000 was the year of the brain in America, and Sir George H. Bush had made several changes in the law to try to promote higher learning brain usage and discovering from various different studies and research in this area. There was a lot of investment made. During this period, I think there was a huge uptick in neurofeedback usage in very many different ways.
What are the different types of neurofeedback?
There are very many different types of neurofeedback, but let's just divide them into two categories, the evasive and non-evasive. The evasive is a form in which the electrical frequencies in your brain are then supplemented with some form of contact or some kind of neurofeedback. This is usually in the case electrical impulses to the brain or to the body, or in some sense like emotional freedom technique uses this kind of touching patterns to kind of anchor in certain areas of the brain to different thought patterns. I think most often we would know about the one that's evasive. That's the one we most often hear about. The most severe of it being electroshock therapy that they used way back. I mean, there are still cases of it being used in extreme situations, but in general it was being widely used in insane asylums to try to treat people with extreme bipolar or schizophrenia and try to get them, shock them out into their senses. Of course, this is not very healthy and the side effects were severe. So since then it's kind of gone in a different direction. And then there's the non-evasive. The non-evasive has no impact on you whatsoever in a sense of physical touch or anything going in and out of your body. And I think this is probably the most healthy and the most productive and long-lasting ways too.